I was diagnosed when I was pregnant with my second son, and I had metastatic melanoma. I am currently no evidence detective, 8 years. I love to say that right away because usually when you tell people you've been diagnosed with cancer, it's like, wah, wah, wah. And then they're like, but where are you at? I am a mother. I'm an artist. I am now an author uh, and
Yay!
a therapeutic arts practitioner, which we'll get into later. And my story is maybe not different from someone who's listening in some cases, and maybe quite different, but we definitely have commonalities as human beings. Um, and my story is this. So I am an artist today, but maybe perhaps wouldn't have called myself, even though I've studied art for a long time and I've been in the art world in different roles, corporate, more on that side of art direction and creative direction for 20 years in marketing, and then moved over to visual artist and really just pursuing my dreams and passion and purpose in the visual arts professional world of being an artist. But it took me some time to get there. And I'm also a cancer survivor, two-time cancer survivor. I was diagnosed when I was pregnant with my second son, and I had metastatic melanoma. I am currently no evidence detective, 8 years. I love to say that right away because usually when you tell people you've been diagnosed with cancer, it's like, wah, wah, wah. And then they're like, "But where are you at? What are we looking at here?" In that case, I ended up writing a book, and since we've last talked, I know we have an interview several years ago talking
Mhm.
with our discomfort, and at that time, I was, um, not in remission, but I was going through treatments, and then I had no cancer, and then I came back and so forth. So definitely at a different point in my life right now, and my kids are a little bit older. Um, I wrote a book, and I wanted to write a book not just about my story, but about other women's stories too. And part of that was a healing process in itself, very eye opening, and allowed me to feel like I wasn't alone and in the journey. And the reason I say that is typically speaking, um, young mothers facing cancer only receive about 5% of cancer support services in the United States. And so we roughly have uh, over 200,000 women a year that are considered young. When I use that term, I'm defining that as someone under 40.
Mhm.
Meaning and there are women out there that have cancer and who are mothers. They could be 65, 70, 85, whatever, and they still are mothers and they still have children, maybe grandchildren, but they're at different phases of their life. And I specifically really wanted to focus in on um, women that were raising young children, and they tended to be young, and they weren't the picture of what you would expect when you walk into an oncology office and you're looking for someone that looks like you, because there aren't many of us in there constantly. But it is unfortunately a growing trend that we're seeing among younger women being diagnosed with cancer today.
And what prompted you to say, "It's time for me to write this, put all this in a book and get other people's stories?" Because it's one thing, obviously from a healing perspective to write, to create art, to do a song, to do something to get it out and share this message, which is, I think, cathartic in and of itself. But then to also allow, the journey and the expression of all of these other women, like what, because I think of Chicken Soup for the Soul, kind of like this is like which is beautiful. And I'm always interested because I love stories. I don't know if you remember this, Narissa, but this was like, oh my gosh, uh I mean, it was a long time ago when Steve and I were first together, but I was working on this Every Woman's Wisdom project, and I think, and
Something about that I do remember, 'cause I
yeah,
remember I remember the Every Woman's Wisdom. Yeah.
EW, and I was just, it was first. I'm like, what's a website? I didn't even know like the whole internet stuff, and you were helping me, and I was just so, and then I ended up getting pregnant and just forgetting that whole project. But I was always interested in storytelling because it's so fascinating because you do get this like kaleidoscope of perspectives, right? Because it's not just yours and it helps you not feel alone, obviously, and it's like nice to share and celebrate other people too on their journey of, being a human. Whether it's, through these difficult times or the celebrations or both, or I feel like it gives us a lot more compassion and empathy for the human experience for all of us, as people. So how did it all of a sudden get the light bulb like, I'm doing this? Like, where were you when you finally were just like, it's happening, I'm doing this?
So it was 2020. We were just coming into the pandemic, so about March of 2020. Um, and unknowingly how long that pandemic would last or what that really meant or looked like or even the severity of it. I didn't have any of those answers or questions even. I kind of thought that it was something that would dissipate. However, um, I was also in during a time when I was trying to find some support for myself, which I failed quite a lot on trying to find groups or something. And when I say that is I was really just looking locally at first, nothing with the internet or going that way, but hey, what could be at my oncology hospital or center or doctor's office, so forth. I had looked at cancer support services, and at the time, then really nothing for me at all. Even support groups tended to be people who were considerably older. When I was first diagnosed, I was 38. So by the time I'm now looking for resources, now I'm 40, a little bit older, but still not as old as the groups that I would see attendees for this. So I started to look online a little bit on Facebook, and I started to find a couple groups there that were great that I loved. And I went on there. And I would read about other people's stories. I would look, sometimes I'd comment, sometimes I'd just be an observer at first to see like what's going on, what's being said. And it was very fascinating because I'd find all different types of people on the internet, right? Ones suffering greatly, ones that were thriving, everything in between. What I started to realize as I was observing stories online, and I'll backtrack just one second because I think you said something important earlier about storytelling and that you love stories and that there's something, a connection for you that draws you into wanting to know about the different stories. I really feel, and as having been in marketing for 20 years, it's about storytelling, whether it's a brand or so, whatever product you're bringing forward, there's a story that resonates with a target audience. But stories as a whole, aside from marketing, are since the beginning of time. I mean,
Mhm.
spiritually, you can go back. What's the number one most sold book in the world? It's the Bible. And those are stories, right? And no one's alive to verify any of those at the moment, but we scholarly can go through them, pick them apart, share them, talk about them, believe or disbelieve wherever we fall with that. Storytelling is natural, it's innate. I think it's part of our DNA as human beings in terms of connecting. And today, unlike thousands and years ago, we have the ability to get stories and information all the time, very quickly, on the
Yeah.
go. Um, However, we also have stories that go on in our minds, right?
Yup. The jukebox,
And
the perpetual
we can spend a
jukebox.
lot of time on that topic and how we rewire that and how
Yep.
we're fixing it and improving ourselves or not. We're getting into more trouble and making poor choices. But there's a story, there's a script in our brain. And we're what we share with that is only what someone outside of us would know that we want to share. However, we want to curate that, but we do have them internally. So I think like there's this interesting thing about storytelling. It exists everywhere all day long, 24/7. Even when you seem like you're silent, your mind is running with something.
Yep,
Yeah.
totally.
So I felt like I had a story, I wanted to tell it, and to be honest, at first I thought, who cares? Like, I'm not anybody that anybody really knows outside of my own network, and it's just one story. And while it's one story and maybe it's powerful to me or the people that know me, people that don't know me, I felt it's missing something. If I were to move forward with writing, this is a bigger thing than just me. But my story is important to share, but I think it does better in community because my whole point was I'm looking for people that look like me, right? That are in the same band camp as me, that are young with cancer, pregnant with cancer, babies with cancer, maybe want to have a family, but they're not starting yet because they have cancer. And before they do any treatment. They have to begin to freeze their eggs or do something that will plan for perhaps if they get through it, that they could have a family later.
Yeah,
Um, those are not the common categories in the oncology world that people go through or that we're seeing, but it is growing. So initially, when I started really paying attention, engaging online in some support groups that way, one thing I noticed about women is they really that had cancer, really it didn't matter what type of cancer. They position themselves constantly as a number or a stage or a treatment. And I really felt like we were going away from the story.
mhm,
And now we're a ticket, a number, a stage, a diagnosis, a treatment, a surgery. But I don't know your name. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know anything about you. And it bothered me because that's how people were introducing themselves.